In my previous life, I was despised by Kaelan, the very crown prince I had longed for. I endured humiliation and even a public wedding just to marry him. 3 days later, he brought home a dazzlingly beautiful woman, claiming they were truly in love. I tolerated this farce of true love, and accepted her as his concubine. Yet she flaunted herself before me every day, stoking my fury until I shoved her into the pond. To my horror, she was pregnant. With a single divorce decree, I was sent back to my family. My parents, already heartbroken over my insistence on marrying him, offered me shelter but no warmth. In the end, I died in regret and depression. The second time around, I returned to the day of my marriage to Kaelan. Everything unfolded just as in my past life. He did not show up. A servant dragged in a rooster, seemingly to shame me. I snapped open my bridal veil and gazed at the bird, its neck and wings held tight, feeling only absurdity and sorrow. So Kaelan would rather send a chicken in his place? I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm, echoing clearly through the wedding hall. Perhaps he's bedridden. Poor thing. I continued. I married him only for his handsome appearance, petitioning the emperor for this union. And yet, I am now to live a widow at such a young age. The imperial edict merely decreed an alliance between two families. I added. It did not name me, Rowena, to marry any specific son of the Kaelan household. Are there any healthy, willing men left in your Kaelan family to marry me? The hall fell silent. Guests froze, shock and disbelief written across their faces. Young men of the Kaelan family shrank back nervously, afraid I might single them out. Their timid, cowering demeanor was almost comical. At that moment, Kaelan himself appeared. My heart leapt, and I boldly looked straight at him. Prince, will you marry me? Thalion, Hathor, Kaelan's adoptive father and the emperor-appointed Duke of the North, was only 28. Though he had no queen, his household was filled with children. Born with a congenital ailment, a so-called heavenly eunuch, he could not father children. The sons around him were adopted from the clan, gifted boys destined to inherit. Kaelan was the most outstanding among them. The prince paused, listening to a whisper from his attendant explaining the scene. He fell silent for a moment. His gaze deepened unreadable. Then he nodded. Indeed, Abtal, Kaelan has been discourteous today, he said. Yet I, the prince, am unlikely to have heirs. Rowena, do you understand? He feared I might resent the lack of offspring. But this suited me perfectly. In my previous life, marriage to Kaelan had been nothing but torment. This time, marrying a heavenly eunuch spared me all such worries. I smiled. Prince, with so many sons, will you still worry that no one will care for me in old age? And so, Kaelan and I went through the wedding ceremony. Married, with my audacious act already shocking everyone. The guests found it easier to accept the prince's agreement. The groom had changed. But the feast went on, lively as ever. The prince himself didn't care what outsiders thought, so why should they? Yet the capital now had a fresh topic of gossip. After the ceremony, the prince was urgently summoned to the palace. I imagined the palace had already been informed in detail of the wedding farce. The emperor casually asked whether Kaelan really wished to marry me. I never learned his answer. That evening, news arrived that the emperor had ordered him to lead troops against a band of outlaws, leaving immediately with no set return date. I did not mind whether he returned or not. It was simply a matter of one more person by my side or not. The third day of our marriage was the customary return to family day. The prince's duties meant he might not accompany me. The estate steward had already prepared the return gifts meticulously. I examined each item careful, proper, befitting the dignity of the royal household. In my past life, being divorced and sent home, I had spent sleepless nights regretting, wishing I had heeded my parents' advice. This life, though I did not marry Kaelan, fate had made me a princess nonetheless. I wondered if my parents' hearts would find some comfort. Just as I was about to enter the carriage, a group of horses, kicking up dust, raced toward the estate. Leading them was my newlywed husband, Thalion Kaelan himself. He arrived windblown, exhaustion marking his features. Prince, I said with a slight bow, Wait a moment. I will freshen up and return home with you, he replied, dismounting and hurrying inside. The maids and servants scrambled to fetch water, garments, and everything needed. I followed quietly, waiting. Upon reaching the Rowena residence, my parents' expressions were, as expected, stern. But when they saw the prince personally help me down from the carriage, the stiffness on their faces softened and into faint smiles. He instructed his men to carry the return gifts inside. My mother tugged me aside. You stubborn girl, she hissed, anger and exasperation mingling in her voice. You cried and begged to marry Kalen. And yet on your wedding day, he humiliated you so. Fortunately, Henning Fosteltli, you had the courage not to actually wed that rooster. I truly feared you would swallow that insult silently for his sake. She poked my forehead, frustration in every gesture. But you are audacious beyond measure, daring to propose a new groom on the spot. I cannot tell if your nature is a blessing or a curse. Your father named you Rowena. And yet, you are nothing of the sort. After a long scolding, her tone softened, concern creeping in. The prince. Is he treating you well? I felt a warmth in my chest. Mother, rest assured, all is well. You saw it yourself, he had urgent duties. Yet he rode swiftly back today just to accompany me. Her expression eased slightly, though she continued with motherly advice. Since he treats you well, cherish it. Keep your thoughts in order. Having married the prince, forget Kalen entirely. No more foolish whims. I suppressed a smile. Having lived through my last life, Kalen stirred only disgust in me. Not a trace of longing remained. Mother, I understand, I said sincerely. I will never act foolishly again. She tapped my forehead lightly before leading me back to the main hall, where my father and the prince were engaged in pleasant conversation, the atmosphere warm and harmonious. After lunch, I set off back to the Wang residence. No sooner had I alighted from the carriage at the mansion gate than a splendid carriage approached from afar, heading straight toward the residence. I fixed my gaze, and the emblem on the carriage pole was unmistakably familiar. It was none other than the carriage of my former fiancé, Kalen. The curtain lifted, revealing Kalen's handsome yet cold face. Behind him, just as in my previous life, was the beautiful lady he claimed to truly love. Kalen was the first to leap down from the carriage. Rowena, why aren't you inside the mansion? Why are you standing out here? His tone carried that habitual impatience he always reserved for me. Evidently, he had no idea about the disruption at the wedding. Good. I couldn't be bothered to inform him. It's naturally for the customary return visit on the third day, I replied lightly. He clearly misunderstood, thinking I was merely preparing to visit my family home. What a coincidence, he murmured to himself, a hint of condescension in his voice. Since I'm back, I'll accompany you. Let's see what gifts have been prepared for the return visit. Don't disgrace the Wang family's reputation. As he spoke, he walked closer. Only then did he notice the prince, having fulfilled my obsession, mostly hidden behind the carriage. Kalen's arrogance vanished instantly, replaced by a swift bow. Father. The prince's expression was dark enough to drip ink. Enter the mansion, were the only words, cold and utterly devoid of warmth. Kalen froze, bewildered. He had wanted to introduce the lady beside him, but seeing his father's grim face, he dared not ask further. He could only help the beauty descend from the carriage and walk into the mansion together. Naturally, I wouldn't stand idly by. The moment the prince spoke, I followed him to the gates of the Wang residence. Once inside the main hall, I walked straight to the seat beside the prince and sat down calmly. Kalen, supporting his lady, entered next. When he looked up, he saw me seated beside the prince. His limited brain couldn't process it immediately. He felt a strange mix of confusion and anger and blurted, Rowena, how dare you be so disrespectful? Get down. His words were cut off by the prince's thunderous command. Kneel. The prince's voice wasn't loud, yet it carried a force that pierced to the soul. The smug expression Kalen had worn while scolding me instantly froze, replaced by shocked and flushed anger. He never expected that a father usually lenient toward him would humiliate him so thoroughly in front of Rowena. "Father?" Kalen's voice was hoarse, as if he wanted to confirm he had misheard. He straightened his back. A long-standing habit of never showing weakness before anyone, especially before Rowena, his perennial admirer. The lady beside him trembled, timidly tugging at Kalen's sleeve, whispering, "Young master." "Bess." I sat motionless, my eyelids unmoved. A faint lift at the corner of my lips betrayed my amusement. Kalen, today, it seems, is finally having his comeuppance. "Did you not hear me?" the prince repeated, his tone laden with authority, leaving no room for dispute. Kalen's face drained of color. His fists clenched tightly. His throat worked audibly. "Your Highness." I finally spoke, my voice calm as if stating the most mundane fact. "The young master has just returned from his travels and must be weary. Perhaps he is unaware of certain matters. It would be wise to allow him to settle this young lady first, and then discuss other matters afterward." Though my words seemed to defend Kalen, they subtly reminded the prince that Kalen had likely been gallivanting with the beauty these past few days, neglecting all affairs of the Wang residence. The prince gave me a deep, inscrutable glance. Kalen seized at the lifeline, hastily saying, "Yes, Kadik too. Father. I've just returned. And this lady is." He attempted to introduce the beauty beside him, hoping to distract the prince. "Impudent." The prince slammed the armrest. The teacup shattered with a clink, tea splashing everywhere. "Rowena. You are now my princess, the mother of your child. Yet when you meet your mother, you neither bow nor show respect," speaking brazenly. "And now, in front of her, you dare to present this filthy thing you brought back from who knows where?" "Mother." "Mother?" Kalen was struck dumb, as if struck by lightning. This address stunned him far more than kneeling ever could. Rowena married his father? Impossible. The lady beside him turned pale, staring between the prince and me in disbelief. Kalen stood petrified, his mind in chaos, completely ignorant of the events at the wedding. He only remembered traveling far with his beloved to escape the marriage with Rowena, instructing his men to use a rooster in the wedding hall to humiliate her. He had assumed Rowena would cry, threaten suicide, or endure it silently for his sake. At worst, the marriage would be called off, and her family's honor tarnished. Seeing her at the mansion today, he assumed she had married a rooster in the hall, which is why she remained. Never did he imagine that she had actually married his father. I let out a soft laugh, breaking the tense silence. "What's the matter, young master? Don't recognize me?" Kalen shuddered violently, as if pricked by a needle. His once handsome face twisted in shock and fury. "Rowena. You. His voice was dry, hoarse, squeezed from the depths of his throat. Those eyes that had once looked at me with contempt were now bloodshot, fixed on me as if they would devour me whole. I tilted my head, leisurely studying him. "It's only been a short time. I've merely taken on a new identity, becoming your mother. How can you act as if you don't know me?" I emphasized the word mother, letting it linger with a subtle, teasing smile. Kalen's breathing grew ragged, his chest heaving violently. The lady beside him, pale as a ghost, clutched his sleeve, trembling like autumn leaves in the wind. "You. Stop this nonsense." Kalen finally found his voice, shaky yet furious. "Father. What is the meaning of this? This woman." He turned sharply to the prince, seeking denial. The prince calmly lifted his teacup, blowing the froth away with measured grace, never once looking at Kalen. This silent disregard was far more humiliating than any rebuke could have been. I watched his panicked, helpless expression and felt a flicker of satisfaction. "Young master," I said slowly, savoring the mix of pale and flushed tones on his face. "You've missed quite a spectacle during your travels. But I must say, I owe you thanks." "Young master," I continued. Kalen froze, clearly not expecting such words. "I must thank you for humiliating me with that rooster. Otherwise, I never would have had the chance to unveil my veil, and if I hadn't removed it, how could I have glimpsed the divine presence of the prince?" I once thought your appearance was unparalleled. Rare in the world. I said, feigning regret. A touch of mock disappointment in my tone. No. It seems. It was my eyes that were flawed. The prince, compared to you, young master, is far more handsome and heroic. At these words, Kalen's face instantly deepened into a liver-red hue. His pride in his own appearance so vaunted before his father was, in fact, utterly insignificant. Those words struck Kalen like a poise and dagger to the heart. And to make matters worse, they came from Rowena, the very woman he had once discarded like a worn-out shoe. The rooster wedding had been his self-satisfied method at humiliation, his way of flaunting a dalliance before a beauty. Yet now, spoken lightly by me, in front of the prince and before the eyes of the woman he adored, it became irrefutable evidence of his folly. Kalen staggered, nearly losing his footing. You, he trembled with rage, his hand quivering as he pointed at me. He tried to speak, yet nothing coherent came out. Father! How could you? How could you marry such a woman? She way too. She's not worthy. Finally, Hedinso filled my sigh. He turned his accusatory fury toward the prince, disbelief lacing his tone. The prince set down his teacup with a crisp snap, the sound piercingly clear in the hushed main hall. Do I need your permission to choose my bride? The prince said evenly. Yet his words carried the oppressive weight of a coming storm. She is already my princess consort. Your mother an undeniable fact. Should you speak out of turn again, do not blame me for forgetting our father-son bond. Kalen's last shred of fantasy shattered. He seemed to lose all strength, staggering backward. The beauty beside him cried out, nearly toppled by his flailing. Impossible. Impossible. He murmured, eyes unfocused. This cannot be. Rowena. How could she? He could not accept that the woman who had once obeyed him in every whim, bending to his every touch, had transformed into his stepmother. Father. She was clearly mine. Kalen stammered, his finger trembling as he pointed at me. Yours? The prince said coldly. Your fiancée? It you knew. Where were you on the day of the wedding? Do you realize? Had Rowena not acted decisively and insisted I personally wed her, the consequences would have been disastrous? The emperor's decree, would you dare trample it so? Do you wish to see my household ruined? Because of your absurd actions. Both the Rowena and Kalen families have become the laughingstock of the entire capital. Only then did Kalen grasp the gravity of the situation. He had always believed that, relying on his father's power and his status as crown prince, even major disruptions could be smoothed over with ease. He never imagined Rowena would play such a move, nor that his father would truly marry her. The very bride he had schemed to escape now stood above him in a position he could not challenge. It was agony beyond death. I watched him crumble, feeling no pity, only the intoxicating satisfaction of revenge finally fulfilled. Kalen. So proud, so disdainful of me. Now. Would you kneel? Would you call out mother? I sipped my tea lightly. Today, it tasted especially sweet. The beauty at his side had already collapsed to her knees, wailing, Mercy! Your Highness! Princess consort! Have mercy! I and the crown prince truly love each other. I beg you please. Grant us your blessing. Her cries only made Kalen's plight more pitiable. I raised the tea freshly brought by a maid, blowing gently on the steam, my mind calculating. How much favor did the prince hold for Kalen? His adopted son? How would he handle this mess? This was no longer merely Kalen's personal matter. It concerned the very honor of the royal household. Truly in love? The prince's gaze shifted toward the kneeling woman, scrutinizing her with disapproval. She shrank under his aura, lowering her cries but continuing to kowtow ceaselessly. The prince ignored her, turning back to Kalen with deep disappointment. You have disappointed me greatly, he said, as the future heir of this household. To act so recklessly, ignoring the greater picture, shows no responsibility whatsoever. From today onward, you are confined to the reflection chamber. Without my command, you shall not step outside. Reflect properly on your failings. Father! Kalen's face went ashen. He knew this time his father's wrath was genuine. Confinement to the reflection chamber was severe punishment indeed. As for this woman, the prince's eyes swept coldly over the beauty of unknown origin, who has corrupted the crown prince. She shall be expelled from the palace immediately and never allowed to return. No, your highness. Crown prince, she screamed, attempting to reach Kaelan, only to be seized by quick-handed guards. The guards moved swiftly, restraining the despondent Kaelan and the struggling, wailing beauty, dragging them mercilessly out. In an instant, the hall returned to silence. The prince rubbed his weary temple and looked at me, his tone softening slightly. You've been made to witness a scene unseemly for you. I set down my cup and bowed lightly. Your handling was just, your highness. Yet, I paused briefly. This scene differed from my previous life. The woman had been directly expelled by the prince, and Kaelan had no strength to resist. Yet, although that woman erred, she is still a fragile woman cast out, with no place to go. It may invite further scandal, further tarnishing the household's honor. My voice was gentle, as if pleading on behalf of Kaelan and the woman. Yet beneath it lay a reminder, no matter the handling, Kaelan's reckless behavior reflected poorly on the royal house. The prince's brows furrowed. His expression, once softened, darkened again. He studied me, as though seeking some hidden emotion on my face. I met his gaze squarely, fearless. I no longer harbored the slightest sentiment for Kaelan. I could withstand his scrutiny. You are kind-hearted, princess consort, he said, a note of complexity in his voice. As for that woman, she corrupted the crown prince, disturbing the household. Keeping her would be dangerous. His stance was firmer than I had anticipated. I considered my next move and adjusted. Your highness is correct. I merely acted out of compassion, I said sincerely, following his tone. However, simply expelling her may provoke chaos. The prince signaled me to continue. I lifted my gaze. Rather than letting her spread falsehoods outside, it might be better to have her remain in the household, serving the crown prince as a subordinate concubine. At these words, the prince froze. My reasoning sounded absurd, yet it was also logical. This way, it not only silences gossip outside, ChatGPT. I paused, letting a trace of helplessness seep into my tone, as if weighing the greater scheme. It will also let the young master see the price he has paid for this woman. And yet, what he gains in return he will witness it daily, and be reminded daily. The prince regarded me steadily, his expression shifting in ways I could not fully read. He seemed to be weighing my suggestion, gauging my intentions. After a long moment, he let out a quiet laugh, light, yet laden with meaning. My princess. He did not finish the sentence, merely shaking his head, a faint trace of admiration in his gaze, and something else I could not discern. Very well, he finally agreed. Since the princess proposes it, so be it. That woman, let her remain as a plaything for the young master. A surge of indescribable satisfaction welled up in me. Kaelan, your beloved has become your maid, from now on, in the presence of me, your stepmother. All she can do is bow. Just the thought alone brings delight. I stood and bowed to the prince. Your wisdom is unmatched, your highness. The prince helped me to my feet, his gaze softening slightly. You've endured much. I have suffered nothing, I replied softly. That night, the prince stayed in my chambers. It was the first time since my marriage into the Wang residence that the prince had formally spent the night in my room. The flickering candlelight cast gentle shadows across the spacious room. The prince sent away all the maids, leaving only the two of us. I had assumed we would simply share the night, clothed, at most exchanging words and sentiments. But everything changed when his fingers brushed through my hair, his touch careful as if I were fragile porcelain. All the rumors about the prince being celibate by nature vanished in that instant. It was not that he was incapable, only that it was difficult for him to father children. He was gentle. So gentle that it left me in a daze. This kind of tenderness, something I had never known in my previous life. Back then, as his daughter-in-law, I had known little of him. Naturally, I had not realized that one celibate was not the same as another. The night turned heated. And Kaelen, learning that his beloved had become his concubine maid, was furious beyond reason. He kicked over the low table in the study, sending tea utensils clattering across the floor. Lyral is a proper lady. How can father humiliate her so? Reducing her to a concubine maid? He roared, his voice hoarse from anger. I demand to see father. I must see him. Yet his roar did not carry beyond the study's walls. The guards outside showed no expression, as if they had heard nothing. In truth, whether Lyral served as a concubine maid or something else was of no concern to me. Even if she were not a concubine, given her background, without the prince's consent she could only have been kept outside as a nameless, statusless mistress. All of it was a consequence of her own choices. Much like in her past life. Knowing Kaelen despised her, she still approached him blindly, courting humiliation, thinking that her devotion could win his heart. Thankfully, those foolish pasts were now secrets only she knew, buried in the dust of her previous life. The next day, at first light, the prince rose and practiced a set of martial forms in the courtyard. The wind of his strikes whistled through the air, steady and powerful. I, however, lingered in the soft silk quilt, luxuriating in sleep until the sun was high. It had been a long time since I slept so peacefully. Only when the birds outside grew too loud did I slowly awaken. Your Highness is awake? The maid outside whispered, hearing the stir. Yes. Come in. I replied. My attendants, Poppy and Luna, entered one after the other. Poppy carried a copper basin for washing, while Luna held a set of brand new garments. Your Highness, you truly are blessed, Poppy chirped, assisting me with my grooming, her smile unmistakable. When the prince rose this morning, he specifically ordered us not to disturb you, to let you wake naturally. Seeing this, Your Highness is indeed treated with great care. Poppy was the youngest of my 4 accompanying maids. Lively and talkative. Poppy, do not speak carelessly of your mistress. Luna murmured, calm and prudent as always. I am not speaking carelessly. Poppy muttered. I am only recounting how well the prince treats the princess. It is the absolute truth. I smiled faintly at them. Very well. Poppy, t'as fulfilled my obsession. You may speak softly of this before me. But outside, you must be cautious with your words. Yes. Your Highness. We understand, Poppy replied, sticking out her tongue. Halfway through my grooming, the announcement came that the prince was approaching. I rose to greet him. He had finished some affairs in his study, now dressed in a simple dark robe, his posture even more commanding. You are awake, he observed, his gaze lingering briefly on my face. Are you feeling unwell? Memories of the previous night surged, and I felt a faint heat rise to my cheeks. I lowered my eyes, my voice softer than usual. I am well. The prince seemed to notice my embarrassment, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Why so reserved today? On the wedding day, you were bold enough. I met his eyes, seeing only amusement, no displeasure. Indeed, now that we were husband and wife, any further formality would seem pretentious. I relaxed, my tone carrying its usual ease. Do not tease me, Your Highness. That day was unusual, and I had little choice. Pausing, I lowered my voice, curiosity creeping in. By the way, there are rumors circulating outside, about Your Highness. I glanced at Poppy and Luna, hesitant to speak too bluntly. Rumors say, your body is somewhat limited. How is it? The prince paused briefly, then understood, laughing heartily. I had no idea that rumors had reached such absurd extremes. His laughter was clear and hearty, without a trace of anger, more a mixture of helplessness and amusement. Poppy and Luna could not help but cover their smiles with lowered heads. After helping me dress, the prince dined with me, and departed to attend to his duties. He had pressing matters yesterday and had rushed back just to accompany me for the return visit, and today he delayed again for me. The thought brought a subtle warmth to my heart. Your Highness, how does this embroidery look? Snowy entered, carrying a hoop with a partially completed peony. I took it, noting the delicate stitches and lifelike design, and nodded in approval. Well done. You've truly captured the spirit of the peony. Snowy was one of my other two accompanying maids. Skilled and meticulous. Especially talented in needlework. At my compliment, a rosy flush spread across her cheeks. Her eyes lighting up with joy. Princess Consort overpraises me. I still have much to learn. She murmured. Princess Consort. Lotus entered. Holding a bowl of child sour plum soup. It's hot today, have a little of this to cool down. I took the bowl and sipped. The sweet and sour flavor instantly refreshed me. Lotus was the most attentive of my 4 maids. Always bringing exactly what I needed at the right moment. By the way, I set the bowl down and asked casually. Where was the woman Kale brought back placed? Poppy's eyes darted. And she leaned in. Lowering her voice. Princess Consort. I found out. Laurel has already been sent to Kale. Arranged to stay in the maid quarters. I understood. Letting out a soft laugh. She had handed herself over to Kale. Now, even as merely a concubine maid, she had no choice but to stay. Kale seemed entirely forgotten by the prince. Before leaving, he hadn't said when Kale could emerge from the reflection chamber. Without his parents around, life in the palace was leisurely. The household steward managed everything. I had nothing to worry about. The conditions were far better than in my previous life. Days passed quietly. 7 days later, in the evening, the prince returned, accompanied by several masked and bound individuals. The prince is back. Poppy ran in excitedly. I saw him leave for the palace with several people earlier. He must be returning soon. Hearing this, I immediately ordered hot water prepared. The prince must be weary from travel and need a bath. Soon, went on a low sigh. He arrived in my courtyard. Fatigue lined his face. But when he saw me, a hint of tenderness flickered in his eyes. Princess Consort, he greeted. You've worked hard, Your Highness. I said, stepping forward. I've had hot water prepared, you may bathe and change first. He nodded and headed straight for the bath. Knowing he disliked maids assisting, I dismissed the others. An hour passed. Still no sound from the bath. Suspicion stirred. Had something happened? I quietly pushed the door open. The prince leaned against the tub. Brows furrowed. Seemingly asleep. Steam enveloped him, softening his normally stern features. I reached to wake him. But as my hand touched his shoulder, he reflexively tossed me into the tub, soaking my clothes instantly. Seeing it was me, he quickly pulled me out to prevent me from swallowing water. Princess Consort, what are you doing here? His brow furrowed. His tone tainted with mild reproach. Yet concern lingered. I pouted, half in mock anger at his rough handling. I came because you hadn't emerged in so long. I feared something happened. Who knew? Even asleep, you were so alert. He gently brushed my nose. A smile in his eyes. Thank you for your concern. Our eyes met. And a sudden intimacy settled between us. My wet clothes clung to my curves. And his gaze grew heated. A blush warmed my cheeks. In the bath, one unclothed, the other soaped through when passion peaks. Some things are simply incomprehensible. Later, resting in the prince's arms, I felt the playful ferocity of someone like a starved wolf, but beneath it, sweetness. Intimacy I had never experienced in my past life. The prince had my personal maid assist afterward. All present understood what had transpired. We exchanged glances and quietly smiled. The household rejoiced at the prince and princess consort's harmony. After returning to my room, the prince did not trouble me further. Exhaustion overtook me, and I fell into a deep sleep. The next day, having fulfilled my sigh, he rose early to practice martial arts. A long-standing habit. I woke naturally, sore all over, even more than before. Poppy noticed faint red marks on my neck and collarbone. Her cheeks flamed, her hands flowed, and she kept her head down, ears burning. I found her reaction amusing and cleared my throat deliberately. Startled, she moved quickly but dared not look up. We ate together as usual. The prince spoke little, occasionally offering me a simple dish. After the meal, he set down his chopsticks. Gaze fixed on me. Today, come with me to the main hall. I nodded in understanding. He then instructed the servants. Bring Kale and that woman here. I sat at the main seat, lounging casually, one hand propping my chin, the other idly turning the tea lid. When KLN was brought in, I looked up. 7 days of confinement had added a haggardness to his once handsome face. His clothes were wrinkled, hair disheveled, none of the charm I had once admired remained. In hindsight, my past obsession had been foolish. His eyes instinctively fell on the figure at the main seat. Seeing the faint weariness and allure in the prince's expression, KLN, worldly enough, understood the situation. His gaze flickered with complex emotion, then dropped, hiding his feelings. Unaccountably, uncontrollably, a pang of discomfort and indefinable sensation struck him. Lyra followed behind KLN, looking even more pitiable. Her previously delicate face was now pale and dull, hair undone, wearing a half-new, half-worn dress with faint stains. These 7 days had been far from pleasant. She had thought that climbing to KLN's side would elevate her like a phoenix. She had underestimated the palace threshold so high, so cold. Thalion sat at the head, eyes piercing as they swept over the kneeling pair, his voice devoid of warmth. KLN, if you are so enamored with this woman that you defy imperial decree, today I shall indulge you. KLN's eyes flickered with hope, and he looked up sharply. Thalion continued, yet she, who could incite you to such actions, must surely be scheming and deceitful. Let her remain by your side as a concubine maid. Father, KLN pressed, crawling a step closer. Lyra, she is a proper lady. How can she, men at a low sigh, serve as a concubine? His tone carried both resistance and plea. Thalion snorted coldly, a glint of steel in his eyes. Oh? A proper lady? If she were truly obedient and virtuous, would she have eloped and caused such disorder? I have already granted her a title for your sake. If you refuse— He paused, voice colder still, then cast her out. If you cannot bear it, keep her outside as a mere plaything. KLN's face turned ghostly white at these words. He knew his father's word was law. This was already the best outcome they could hope for. If he kept arguing, Lyra might not even be allowed through the gates of the prince's residence. And afterward, she would be left utterly alone. He glanced at the trembling Lyra beside him, then finally lowered his head and muttered in a muffled voice, "Your son will obey father's arrangement." At those words, Lyra's knees gave out. She nearly collapsed to the floor, her eyes full of despair. No matter how she schemed, she had never imagined that in the end, she would be reduced to nothing more than a concubine in name. Watching from the side, I found the entire scene unbearably dull. No matter the outcome, it always seemed that the ones to suffer were women. In my past life, it had been me. In this one, it was Lyra. Suddenly, I had no interest in witnessing this farce any longer. Pressing my fingers to my temple, I spoke lazily. "Your Grace, I'm feeling rather tired. I'd like to return to my courtyard and rest." With that, I rose unsteadily, leaned on Poppy's hand, offered a perfunctory curtsy, and turned to leave, swaying slightly as I walked away, too weary to even stay for the conclusion. The prince had disciplined the pair merely to vent the princess's anger. Now that the person in question had left, his interest in dragging things out vanished as well. His gaze on the man and woman below turned cold, filled only with impatience and scrutiny. "Let it be so," he said evenly, his tone calm yet carrying undeniable authority. "In the future, mind your words and actions. After all, this prince has plenty of sons. Losing one makes no difference." The words struck like a hammer. KLN's body trembled, as if doused in icy water, his mind snapping to clarity. Yes, he and the prince's other sons were all adopted from branch families. He had merely enjoyed his father's favor because of his wit, and in his arrogance, have forgotten his place, nearly making an unforgivable mistake. When his eyes turned toward Lyra again, they carried a faint trace of resentment. If not for her, he wouldn't have fallen so low. The prince said no more. With a flick of his sleeve, he turned and strode off toward the main courtyard. I had long returned to my quarters, lounging sideways on the wide chaise beneath the veranda. A few stalks of green bamboo stood nearby, sunlight filtering through their leaves, scattering speckled shadows across the ground. Lotus stood to one side, fanning me leisurely, heading fulfilled my obsession. A gentle breeze carrying a hint of coolness. Such refined leisure. Your Highness. Came a familiar, deep voice from behind, tinged with an emotion hard to name. I go through the trouble of defending your honor. And you slip away, leaving me there to play the villain alone. Perhaps it was the heat. Or perhaps that ridiculous scene had soured my mood, but his words inexplicably irked me. My tone came out sharper than I intended. If your grace feels you've wronged your precious son, then by all means, go comfort him. There's no need to come here taking it out on me. I am your wife now. As for Kale, and he has nothing to do with me any longer. Maybe my sudden, unprovoked irritation struck a nerve with Thalion. For the faint tease on his face vanished in an instant. His expression darkened. His gaze heavy and unreadable. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, with a sharp flick of his sleeve, he turned on his heel and strode away. Poppy entered just then, carrying a tray of freshly brewed iced tea. She froze at the sight of the prince storming off, then glanced at me, my face equally grim, and nearly spilled the tea in fright. Setting the cup down carefully, she leaned closer and whispered, "Your Highness. The prince seems upset." But I was far too vexed to care. Turning over, I lay with my back to her and pretended not to hear. The courtyard fell silent, save for the relentless hum of cicadas, their shrill cries clawing at one's nerves. The maids standing nearby exchanged uneasy glances, hardly daring to breathe. That evening, Thalion did not join me for dinner. Nor did he return at bedtime. So we remained in this wordless stalemate, and days slipped by. Since that day, my heart had been tangled in a knot, heavy and unrelenting. But tonight, I had decided I would not endure this fog of silence any longer. Even if we were to quarrel, I wanted it clear and clean, better a storm than this suffocating calm. From my dressing table, I retrieved a men's pouch embroidered with ink. Orchid Snelly had just finished it a few days ago. The stitches were fine, the design elegant. Holding it in hand, I rose and headed toward the steward's study, intending to ask where the prince might be. The early summer breeze carried a trace of coolness, brushing past the flowers and plants in the courtyard and wafting their fragrance through the air. As I walked slowly along the covered corridor, I rehearsed how I would speak when I saw him. But just as I turned a corner past a lush cluster of fern bamboo, I nearly collided with Kalen. He froze, then quickly straightened, his eyes fixed on me. "Rowena," he said. The sound of my name on his lips made my skin crawl. I didn't even bother to look up, just stepped aside, intending to pass him. Yet he refused to yield, reaching out to grab my wrist. I instantly shook off his hand as if burned, my brows knitting tightly, my voice icy. "Kalen, you should address me as mother." He flinched, wounded by the disgust I didn't bother to hide. His eyes reddened slightly, his voice trembling. "Rowena, you weren't like this before. You used to." The words caught in his throat, but I knew perfectly well what he wanted to say. "How was I before?" I sneered softly, a hint of mockery in my tone. "From the moment you used a rooster to wed me, there was no longer any possibility between us. Did you truly think I adored you so shamelessly that I'd willingly endure humiliation? Besides, now, I am your mother." I wasn't sure which word of mine had struck a nerve. But the moment passed. Kalen's eyes, once dinged with sorrow, flamed red with anger. His whole body seemed like an enraged young lion as he growled, "No. How can you not love me? You should be my wife. Rowena. You are meant to be my wife." His eyes glistened with unshed tears. And, heedless of anything else, he lunged toward me. Poppy, who had been trailing behind me, sensed the danger and leapt forward, spreading her arms to shield me. But she was only a frail maid, no match for a trained man like Kalen. In an instant, he shoved her aside with brute force, and she stumbled to the ground. Kalen's bloodshot eyes remained locked on me as he advanced recklessly. At that critical moment, a voice like thunder split the air. "Kalen." It was stern, commanding, laced with unrestrained fury. My heart leapt. Following the sound, I saw Thalion striding toward us. His black robes whipped in the wind, face as calm as still water, eyes sharp as blades. In a blink, he was nearly upon Kalen. Before Kale could react, Thalian's leg shot out in a precise kick, striking Kale squarely in the chest. Kale let out a muffled grunt and flew backward like a kite cut from its string, crashing heavily to the ground, unable to rise for a long moment. The sudden turn of events released the tension coiling in my chest. A wave of indescribable grievance and fear surged through me. Darkness clouded my vision. My knees buckled, and I began to collapse. Rowena. Thalian dashed forward, his strong arms catching me just in time. I felt the sting in my nose, all my restraint and hurt melting away in that instant. With a thick, trembling voice, I whispered, "Your Highness." Before I could speak further, the world went black, and I lost consciousness. In that last moment of awareness, I thought I heard Thalian's frantic shout, "Rowena," and a command tinged with panic and anger, "Someone, fetch the imperial physician at once." Poppy's tearful cry followed, "Princess consort." Soon, I let out a low sigh. A gray-bearded physician arrived, brought swiftly by guards on horseback. His body still trembled as he dismounted, and he was carried at a run by a guard. "Oi, my old arms and legs," he muttered, rubbing his waist as he was set down. Thalian, no longer concerned with anything else, hurried forward, voice betraying a faint tremor, "Darian, please, check on Rowena." His usually cold and composed face was etched with worry. Darian, seeing the urgency, nodded. Inside the inner chamber, he sat on an embroidered stool brought by the maids. Poppy and Luna carefully removed my wrist from under the embroidered blanket, placing it on the pulse pillow. Darian extended 3 fingers onto my wrist, closing his eyes in concentration. The room fell into a tense silence, broken only by the sound of breathing. He stroked his beard, pondering. His brow first furrowed slightly, then shifted, and he changed hands to take my pulse again, scrutinizing with meticulous care. Thalian's heart rose and fell with each subtle movement of Darian's brows, nearly leaping into his throat. Finally, heavy facilely, Darian opened his eyes slowly, gazing at Thalian with measured deliberation. "Princess consort's pulse shows signs of a joyful pulse, though it is still early and weak. In a few days, I must re-examine her to confirm. As for today's sudden fainting, it is likely from fright and overthinking in the past few days, causing irregular qi and blood flow. I will prescribe some medicine to calm the mind and nurture the fetus. Careful rest and recovery will suffice." However, Thalian had already been struck like lightning when he heard signs of a joyful pulse. His ears rang, as if muffled by a thick layer. Every sound seemed distant and unreal. A joyful pulse? Rowena, pregnant? I'm going to have a child? Darian, seeing Thalian unresponsive, cleared his throat heavily. Your Highness?" Thalian snapped back to reality, his deep eyes lighting with uncontainable joy. He almost lost his composure, seizing Darian's arm, voice trembling with disbelief. "Darian, are you saying? You mean Rowena? She is pregnant?" From the pulse, it indeed appears to be a joyful one. Almost certain. But it's still early. In a few days, when the fetus is more stable, I will confirm again for absolute certainty. Darian's arm ached slightly under Thalian's grip, but he let him hold on, a mixture of exasperation and understanding in his calm demeanor. But Thalian no longer noticed. Only the words "a joyful pulse" seemed to reach him. Joy engulfed him completely, almost overwhelming him. His usual composure vanished, replaced by a wide, foolish grin, eyes sparkling uncontrollably. Darian watched, heart full of mixed feelings. Years ago, the Northern Prince's household had concubines, yet none had ever been known to conceive. The prince had privately sought a physician and been told that pregnancy would be difficult, so the rear household had been disbanded, and heirs adopted from collateral branches. Rumors of celibacy by nature arose from this. The prince had never minded such rumors, letting them fester, saving himself trouble and discouraging infatuated women. Today, pouting fulfilled my obsession. Discovering the princess consort's joyful pulse was a shock indeed, but the previous diagnosis had suggested difficulty, not impossibility. Now it seemed they truly were a match blessed by heaven. Hence today's joyous news. The northern prince had always been respected by the court, upright and strict in governance and military command. Darien felt glad for him. An adopted child could never compare to one's own blood. Darien composed himself and ignored the still giddy prince. Picking up a brush, he dipped it in ink. A maid had already laid out the rice paper. With swift, fluid strokes, he wrote out the prescription for calming the mind and nurturing the fetus. Looking at the maid standing nearby, his gaze settled on the composed Luna. Take this prescription to the pharmacy. Prepare the medicine. 3 times a day, 3 bowls of water boiled down to 1. Taken warm. Begin with 3 days, course and focus on rest. Luna knelt promptly. Yes, and fulfilled my aunt Sasha. Mistress. I've noted it. He leaned down once more, speaking to the still overjoyed Kalian with careful instructions. During the first 3 months, the princess must rest quietly. She must not overexert herself, and must avoid anger. Her diet should be light, and all spicy or stimulating foods are forbidden. But Thalion could barely hear any of this. His mind was consumed with one thought: I have a child. Rowena is with child. He nodded foolishly, smiling like a child who'd been given candy, repeating over and over. Yes. 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 I'll follow your instructions. In that moment, there was no trace of the decisive, commanding aura the northern duke he usually carried. Darien shook his head helplessly and added, Prince, did you hear what I just said? During these first 3 months, absolutely no conjugal relations. Any disturbance could harm the fetus. Regret would be too late. Thalion, having fulfilled my sigh, who hadn't heard this the first time, finally caught it now. The words finally calmed the storm of his excitement slightly. The silly smile on his face froze, replaced by an awkward cough and a faint flush at his ears. I understand, he said, attempting to regain his usual stern demeanor. Yet the joy in his eyes was too powerful to conceal. Thank you, Elder Zhang, he said, bowing slightly to Darien, his tone unusually polite. Darien waved him off. Prince, no need for thanks. This is but my duty. The princess is favored by heaven. Mother and child will surely be safe. I shall return in a few days to check on her. By then the fetus should be more stable. Yes. 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 Thalion replied eagerly, escorting Darien from the inner chamber himself. He could barely contain the urge to announce it to the world. I am going to have a child. Once Darien was sent off in a carriage, Thalion immediately turned and hurried back to the bedside. Poppy, having fulfilled and Sai, Lotus, and Snowy were keeping watch. And upon seeing him, they quickly bowed. Prince, they greeted. Thalion waved them off, signaling that no formalities were necessary. His gaze settled on the figure in bed. He reached out, then paused midair, afraid of startling her. Those deep eyes now shone with a careful tenderness, mingled with uncontainable joy. What were you planning to do today, Your Highness? He asked softly. Poppy thought for a moment. Your Grace. The princess said she wanted to. She wanted to see you this morning. I accompanied her to the front courtyard. On the way, we met the eldest young master. And then, you arrived. Thalion frowned, recalling the troublemaker Kalen. If he hadn't caused a sudden disturbance today, Rowena wouldn't have been so frightened. That thought replaced the softness in his eyes with a flash of anger. Where is Kalen? His voice was cold now. The guards outside hastened to report. Bowing low. Prince, Kalen has been captured and is held in the secret chamber, awaiting your orders. Keep him under strict watch, Thalion said sharply. When the princess wakes, I want her to deal with him personally. Yes, head impulsive wide sigh. Your Grace, the guards replied before retreating. Thalion turned back to me, his previous anger dissolving, leaving only tenderness and anticipation. He gently took my hand. Rowena, do you hear that? We have a child, he whispered, his voice trembling slightly, barely containing emotion. Our child. He bent down, pressing his ear lightly against my abdomen, as if listening for the faint heartbeat of the new life. Poppy and Luna exchanged a glance, sharing the quiet joy and emotion, then silently withdrew, leaving us alone. The room fell into a hushed serenity, filled only with Valiant's contented sighs and steady breathing. He remained there, holding my hand, pressing close to my abdomen, a constant smile never leaving his lips. Time passed, though I could not tell how long, until I slowly awoke. The familiar canopy of the bed came into view, and a faint calming fragrance lingered in the air. My head felt heavy, and the events of the morning flooded my mind. The feral expression of Kalen, the sharp kick, Thalian's anxious shouts. I jolted fully awake, seeing me stir. Thalian's tension broke instantly. He swept me into his arms with such strength it felt as though he were fusing me into his very being. "Forgive me, Rowena. Forgive me," he murmured, his voice trembling with restrained fear and guilt. "I failed to protect you. I frightened you." His warm breath on my neck loose and my taut nerves slightly. But it was followed by an overwhelming surge of grief and lingering fear. I could no longer hold back. Tears poured down my face, escalating from quiet sobs to full-blown wailing. I struck Thalian's broad chest again and again, not with strength, but with the desperate need to vent. "Waii. I was so scared. Yes, hadn't fulfilled my obsession. Yes. It's all my fault. My failure," Thalian murmured, letting me beat on him while holding me tighter, awkwardly patting my back. "Waan. Don't cry anymore. Don't hurt yourself. You crying like this breaks my heart. And besides, there's a baby inside you now. You cannot be this upset." My crying abruptly ceased. I lifted my tear-streaked face, choking on my words. "Wh2. What? A baby?" Instinctively, heading felt. I placed a hand over my flat abdomen. It seemed unchanged, yet an unfamiliar sensation swelled in my heart. I looked at Thalian in disbelief, a mix of confusion and hope in my eyes. "Really? Your Grace? We have a child?" Thalian's eyes glistened with tears, and he nodded emphatically, unable to contain his overwhelming joy. He took my hand over my abdomen, his voice hoarse with emotion. "Yes. Truly. Darian has seen you. He confirmed your pregnancy. It is still early, and the fetus is delicate, so he gave many instructions. In a few days, he will come again, and then the fetus should be more secure." Tears blurred my vision again, but this time they were tears of joy. I leaned into Thalian's chest, feeling the warmth and steady heartbeat, my heart overflowing with emotion. After a moment, I remembered the enraged figure from before, my voice trembling slightly as I asked, "What about Kalen?" At once, the softness in Thalian's eyes turned to ice. He held my shoulders, ensuring I saw the resolve and lethal intent burning in his gaze. "I have locked him in the secret chamber. Rowena. Whatever you wish to do with him, even if it is to take his life, I will not interfere." I lowered my head, long lashes hiding the storm of emotions in my eyes. In my previous life, I had so humbly yearned for his attention, even a single glance, but never received it. This life, when I had already resigned myself to merely living in peace, he had shown such intent. How bitterly ironic. After a long moment, I lifted my head, my voice carrying a mix of fatigue and resolve. "I don't want to see him again. Your Highness. Could you have him expelled from the estate? Never let him appear before me again." Thalian paused slightly, as if surprised by how simple my request was. He studied me intently, then spoke in a deep, resolute tone. "Of course. He was adopted under my name, becoming my son. You are already his mother. For him to harbor such vile thoughts and commit such a grievous act, I would not blame anyone who suggested his punishment a Faust Famblad. For you to merely wish him expelled from the estate is already showing him mercy." He paused, softening his tone with reassurance. "Rest easy, Rowena. I will handle everything. He will never again have the chance to disturb you or our child." With that, the prince left the bedchamber, no doubt to deal with Kalen. The calming incense in the room lingered, but my heart no longer felt as tense as before. Poppy and Lotus entered silently, checking on me. Poppy carried a bowl of warm bird's nest porridge. "Princess consort, please have a little something to settle your stomach. The physician advised that you must not go hungry," she said gently, her concern careful and tender. I nodded slightly, and let them serve me half a bowl. The warmth in my stomach eased some of my discomfort, and my spirits lifted a little. Yet even as I thought of KLN, a vague, oppressive unease lingered. Time passed, perhaps an hour, perhaps longer. Footsteps sounded outside, light but deliberate. It was the steward of the prince, standing behind the beaded curtain. He spoke with deference, "Your Highness. The prince has expelled KLN from the estate and struck his name from the family registry. From now on, he has no connection with the estate. The prince sent me to inform you, please rest assured." Hearing that KLN had been removed from the list of heirs, a heavy weight finally lifted from my heart. It was not the satisfaction I had imagined, only the weary relief of resolution. In the private chamber of the estate, the atmosphere was frozen, tense as ice. Thalion stood with his hands clasped behind his back, facing away from KLN, who was bound to a pillar. KLN's hair was disheveled, his mouth stained with blood, eyes bloodshot. Yet he still roared in defiance, "Father! You can't do this to me. I am your son. Rowena. She was once my Fang Qi. She." Silence. Thalion spun around sharply, his voice like an icy blade. "How dare you speak Rowena's name so freely? Don't think I cannot see the vile thoughts you harbor for my princess consort." His gaze was as piercing as an eagle's, seeming to penetrate KLN's darkest intentions. "When she was your Fang Qi, you did not cherish her. You treated her with disdain, leaving her daily to cold neglect and ridicule. Now she is my wife, and you parade this pretense. What good does it do? Except to soil her eyes and make her feel disgust?" KLN faltered under his gaze, his bravado dimming, though he protested weakly, I was only momentarily confused." "Confused?" Thalion sneered, stepping closer. "Your past disdain for her was confusion? Your vile thoughts after she became your mother were confusion? Attempting to touch her was that confusion too?" With every word, KLN's face paled further. "I once thought you were clever. We raised you with the heir's standards in mind. Yet it seems we nurtured a tiger, allowing such rebellious thoughts to fester." Thalion's voice brimmed with disappointment and finality. "Our father's son bond ends here. Go back to your family. From this moment forth, the estate has nothing to do with you." KLN recoiled as if struck by lightning, face ashen. "No, father. You cannot. If I am expelled, how can I face anyone? Face? When you acted foolishly, did you think of the estate's honor? Enough. There is no more to say. And that Lyral," Thalion added, a glint of disgust in his eyes. "Take her with you. Whether you make her a wife or a concubine is no concern of mine. Do as you will." With that, he turned away, leaving only a cold command, "Guards. Return him and his belongings to the KLN family. Inform the patriarch of my decision." No matter how KLN roared, pleaded, or raged, it was no longer my concern. My world was finally at peace. During my pregnancy, life within the estate resembled that of the Grand Empress Dowager. Everyone tended to me with the utmost caution. Food, clothing, even daily movements were managed carefully, fearing any mistake. This was the prince's first child. None knew if there would be another, so no one dare. Thalion was even more meticulous, speaking softly, as if a loud voice could blow the life away from the person before him. By the 6th month, my pregnancy was unmistakable. One day, for reasons I could not recall, I asked, "Your Highness, when I asked if you would marry me, why did you agree without a second thought?" Thalion smiled faintly. "I thought I'd have to keep that secret in my heart forever." His gaze was so gentle it seemed to drip warmth. "Do you remember when you were 16, visiting the Protectorate Temple, and in the bamboo grove, you rescued a stranger?" As memory returned, the blurred scene took shape. That day, my mother went to the temple to offer prayers. I, restless from being cooped up in the estate, begged to accompany her. At the temple, while my mother prayed, I wandered aimlessly, heading manzimlessly, eventually finding myself in the bamboo grove behind the hill. There, I heard suppressed gasps. Curiosity got the better of me, and I quietly parted the bamboo leaves to see. A man in black lay on the ground, His clothes soaked in blood, the dark stains spreading. My approach startled him. His eyes opened. Sharp and wary. They were deep, star-filled eyes. Like the night sky itself. Now alert. Fixing me with a tense gaze. His hand rested subtly on the hilt of a knife at his waist. Perhaps seeing me as only a young girl, he merely assumed a defensive stance rather than attacking. "Who are you?" I asked softly, suppressing my fear as I drew closer. He remained silent. His eyes colder still. "Should I call the monks to help you?" I hesitated, thinking that if he were a villain, he would not dare alarm the temple. If he refused, I would turn and run. After a long, tense pause, long enough that I thought he would never respond, he gave the faintest nod. Seeing the deepening stain on his clothing, my heart tightened. Without overthinking, I stepped forward, hesitating only briefly. "Let me bandage your wound first. If we wait for help, you might bleed out." At that, he seemed to exhaust all his strength, or perhaps he gave up resisting, letting out a low, weary, I had nothing at hand that could serve as a bandage. In desperation, I tore off a strap from the hem of my skirt and hastily wrapped it around his waist several times. Against the dark black of his robe, the pale pink fabric looked startlingly out of place, yet within moments, that pink was completely soaked by the blood that kept welling up. I dared not delay another second. Turning on my heel, I sprinted toward the temple. At last, I found a young novice monk and quickly pulled him aside to explain the situation, urging him to summon help at once. I leaned against a pillar nearby, panting heavily as I waited. Before long, the novice returned with several elder monks. "Benevolent lady, where is the injured man you spoke of?" one of them asked. "Follow me," I said, leading them back to the hidden grove where the man had been lying. But despite all the commotion, there was still no response from him. When we drew closer, I finally saw his face clearly pale as parchment, lips drained of all color. He had already lost too much blood and fallen unconscious. The monks quickly lifted him together and carried him back to the temple for treatment. When I returned to find my mother, she was alarmed by the sight of me, my hair disheveled, clothes torn, face covered in sweat, and thought something terrible had happened. I stammered out a lie, saying I had gone wandering through the back forest, slipped by accident, and torn my clothes on a tree branch. Knowing my mischievous nature, Mother merely tapped my forehead with a sigh and scolded me gently for being careless, but didn't press the matter further. Fortunately, having fulfilled, there were spare clothes in the carriage. After changing, I followed her home as if nothing had happened. As I recalled all of this, a sudden realization struck me like lightning. My heart raced, and I turned wide-eyed toward Thalion. "That man, Annette, was it you? Your Grace?" He saw the shock in my eyes and couldn't help but chuckle. The corners of his lips curved in amusement. It was indeed I. When I awoke afterward, I sent someone to find out who had saved me. But I noticed your parents seemed unaware of the incident, so I assumed you hadn't told them. I decided not to call upon your family to express my gratitude. Instead, I sent someone to secretly place a white jade hairpin on your dressing table. "The white jade hairpin?" I gasped, stunned as memories resurfaced. "So it was from you?" "I thought it was from my mother." I was so delighted I even ran to ask her. But she scolded me, said I bought so many trinkets that I couldn't even remember when or where I got that one. I laughed sheepishly. I truly thought I'd bought it myself, and simply forgotten. That hairpin was so smooth and luminous I adored it and wore it often. But later, all my thoughts were consumed by Kaylin, and many of my old keepsakes were gradually left to gather dust. Thalion's eyes softened, as though he could read the words I hadn't said aloud. "Later, you met Kaylin, and rumors spread that you were fond of him." I thought, since Kaylin was to become the heir of the royal estate, if you married him with me quietly supporting you from behind the scenes, you would live a peaceful, happy life. He paused, sighing, then smiled faintly with a trace of irony. But who would have thought that Kaylin would do something so disgraceful? His tone grew wistful, then light, and again with a note of warmth. "Still, when you boldly proposed that I marry you instead, I once again saw the same fearless young girl who dared to rescue a stranger in the bamboo grove. At the time. Weren't you afraid I might have killed you on the spot? I couldn't help laughing at the memory. Shifting closer to him and tilting my head up, my voice laced with the playful sweetness unique to pregnancy. Well, now I'm lying right here, Your Grace. Go ahead, let's see if you truly have the heart to harm me. With that, I actually leaned back as if offering my neck. Thalion let out a low, helpless laugh, looping an arm around me to pull me firmly into his embrace. With his other hand, he gently pinched my cheek, his every movement overflowing with tenderness. Nonsense. He scolded softly, though his voice was anything but stern. You are the very flesh of my heart, how could I ever harm you? Besides, there's our child in your womb now. If he learns his father bullied his mother, he won't forgive me once he's born. His gaze dropped to my rounded belly, eyes filled with warmth and quiet wonder. 10 months of pregnancy, 1 day of birth, though I had lived to lifetimes. It was my first time experiencing childbirth. My trusted maids surrounded me, faces pale with panic yet not daring to act rashly, obeying only the midwife's steady instructions. Your Grace. Breathe too. Don't lose your strength. Push again. The midwife's voice was calm but edged with tension. Sweat drenched my body. Time itself seemed to stretch unbearably. Every breath felt endless. Outside, Thalion was pacing restlessly, wearing a track into the floor. Beads of sweat dotted his forehead. He looked even more distressed than I, who was the one enduring the ordeal inside. I could vaguely hear the sound of his hurried footsteps, back and forth, filled with anxious energy. I don't know how long it lasted. When I was on the verge of collapse, the midwife suddenly cried out in delight. Your Grace. I see the head. One last push, the child is coming. At her words, strength surged through me from some unknown place. I gritted my teeth, and after a searing pain tore through me, a loud, clear wail split the heavy air of the birthing room, may cry like a divine song that struck straight into the heart of the man outside. The midwife's joyous voice followed, Congratulations. Your Grace. It's a son. The moment Thalion heard the cry and the announcement, the tension that had held him taut for hours finally broke. Without thinking, he lunged for the door. But the attendants guarding outside stopped him at once. Your Grace. You mustn't. The princess has just given birth, her body is weak, and the newborn is fragile. Your energy is too strong. That might overwhelm them. Inside, a midwife quickly swaddled the baby and brought him to me. With great effort, I opened my eyes. A small, red, wrinkled creature was placed before me, more like a tiny monkey than anything resembling his handsome father. And yet, indescribable joy and tenderness welled up within me, stinging my eyes with tears. I tried to smile, but my eyelids were too heavy to lift. Soon, when at a low sigh, darkness swept over me, and I drifted into sleep. When I awoke again, sunlight was streaming through the lattice windows, casting dappled light across the floor. The stickiness on my skin was gone. Someone had gently cleaned me and changed me into fresh night clothes. Thalion sat at my bedside, one hand clasping mine, the other propping up his head. He looked weary, as though he hadn't slept all night. Yet the moment our eyes met, all fatigue vanished, replaced by boundless joy and tenderness. Those deep, captivating eyes were just as they'd been the first time I saw them, but now, all the guarded coldness was gone, leaving only love, warm and overflowing. The end. My best friend came to visit me, but I overheard the maid's thoughts. The lady is really pitiful. She probably doesn't know that her scumbag of a husband just slept with her best friend. Unfortunately, having fulfilled I was killed in my previous life for meddling in things that weren't my business. What can I do to help the lady this time? I was stunned. I never expected the usually obedient maid to be a reincarnated soul. Tina, my best friend, entered the room and affectionately hugged me, complaining about how exhausting her trip was. I was about to comfort her when I heard a strange voice. The lady is really pitiful. She probably doesn't know that her scumbag of a husband just slept with her best friend. I quickly pulled away from Tina, looking around in shock. Only the maid, Lee, was quietly setting up the afternoon tea in the living room. Tina was still complaining. Look, I got a sunburn. These marks are awful, she said, touching the red spots on her neck. I was about to go get some cream for her when the strange voice came again. This slut is getting bolder. She dares to show off the kiss marks from Adrian right in front of the lady. I froze. Adrian was my husband. Could those red marks on Tina's neck not be from an allergy, but from my husband leaving his marks on her? I anxiously glanced around again and confirmed that the voice was indeed coming from Lee's direction. Tina kept talking to me about her travel adventures. I pretended to listen carefully, but my attention was entirely on Lee. Though she appeared to be working, her mind was filled with disdain and gossip. Through her eerie thoughts, I uncovered a shocking truth: my good friend Tina was the mistress in my marriage. In my previous life, Lee had discovered this. She had tried to hint at it to me countless times, but I had ignored her. It wasn't until Adrian tried to poison me that Lee switched out the tainted food, was caught by Adrian, and ultimately died at his hands. At the time, I believed Adrian's story that Lee had stolen the family jewels and fled to avoid prosecution. I never questioned her disappearance. I couldn't believe Lee was actually reincarnated. While I was still in shock, my husband Adrian came back from his business trip. When he saw Tina, he merely nodded in greeting. Tina didn't react much either, continuing to chat with me. But only I noticed that Lee secretly rolled her eyes at Adrian. Such a good actor. But as soon as there are no outsiders around, those two immediately reveal their true colors. I had always thought that my best friend and my husband weren't that close. Tina even often complained about Adrian. How could these two possibly betray me together? I made an excuse to leave the room to get some cream for Tina, leaving the space for the two of them. As soon as I left the bedroom, I immediately checked the living room's surveillance footage. The moment I left, Adrian came out and sent Lee away. Tina, on the other hand, went to the table to grab some fruit. They didn't speak a word to each other. Just as I was about to dismiss my suspicions, I saw Adrian pass by Tina from behind and pat her on the backside. Tina laughed and shot Adrian a playful glare. That brief physical contact shattered my heart. It suddenly dawned on me that Adrian's business trips had been more frequent in the past 2 years, often lasting 10 days to 2 weeks. Meanwhile, Tina had also been traveling abroad frequently during this time. Her family was ordinary, and her job didn't pay well, so how could she afford to travel the world, flying first class and staying in 5-star hotels? I asked Tina where the money came from, and she said it was from her investments. My heart sank. I immediately began cross-checking their schedules, and to my shock, I found that 8 out of 10 trips matched perfectly. Either Adrian left first, and Tina followed a couple of days later, or Tina returned just before Adrian left again. I couldn't believe I had never noticed the strange pattern. I took a deep breath and calmed down before heading downstairs. In the living room, Tina and Adrian were sitting apart, not talking. I deliberately applied the cream to Tina in front of Adrian. If you hadn't said this was an allergy, I would have thought these were love bites. Tina's face stiffened. But I continued joking. But you really shouldn't just play around. You should find a man and settle down. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed Adrian frown at me. Tina laughed. I don't want to. I'm going to stay single forever and live with you when we get old. After applying the cream, I went over to Adrian to give him a shoulder rub in front of Tina. Darling, you must be exhausted. Tonight, I'll make sure you relax properly. I heard Lee mutter quietly behind me. This scumbag doesn't deserve the lady's kindness. Unfortunately, this bastard is meticulous. He has several phones, making it impossible for the lady to see through his lies. Lee's words sparked an idea in my mind. Adrian did have many phones due to work, and he was highly protective of his privacy. But if I couldn't get to Adrian's phones, I could get to Tina's. I started formulating a plan in my head and then deliberately sat on Adrian's lap. Honey, you've been gone for so long. Half a month. I missed you so much. I wrapped my arms around his neck in a playful manner. Adrian coughed and told me to get off. There are others here. Lee and Tina don't count as outsiders. They won't laugh at us. I pouted and turned to look at Tina. Tina quickly hid the dissatisfaction in her eyes. I really envy you too. 7 years of marriage and still so in love. Other couples would have already hit the 7-year itch. I pretended to be kind. Don't just envy us with your words. You should take action. You're always traveling around. But you should settle down and find a man. If you like handsome guys, I know plenty I can introduce you to. Adrian seemed a bit irritated and pushed me off. Stop worrying about other people's business. Tina is not just other people. She's my best friend. If I don't care about her future, who should I care about? I shot back. Adrian's face darkened. Tina awkwardly tried to smooth things over. My standards are just too high. It's hard to find someone who meets them. How high? I probed deliberately. You wouldn't want someone like Adrian. Would you? Do you want a husband like him? Adrian stiffened, and a flash of anger appeared in Tina's eyes. Lee mumbled to herself while mopping the floor. Is the lady implying something? Has she suddenly become smarter? Tina quickly responded. Adrian is such a great guy. I wouldn't dare aim for someone like him. Besides, I don't like men who focus too much on their careers. I pretended to be excited. As long as you don't like someone like Adrian, we're good. I'll find you a 1.86 meter tall, six-pack ABS guy. And I'm sure you'll be satisfied. During dinner, I kept urging Tina to go out and date a handsome guy. I even emphasized multiple times that I could arrange a gathering with nothing but good-looking men for her anytime. Adrian remained silent the entire time. When Tina left, Adrian suddenly threw a remark at me. The way you pushed your friend to date. You look like a gossipy madam, how embarrassing. Lee, who was hiding in the corner, quietly laughed, saying she loved watching Adrian get irritated by me. I decided to pick a fight with Adrian over this. You're becoming more and more impolite when speaking to me. Are you starting to dislike me? Adrian immediately rubbed his temples. Exasperated. You're being unreasonable. Why are you becoming so stubborn? What do you mean I'm unreasonable? Look at your attitude. I switched from my usual gentle and considerate self to nitpicking at small details, arguing with Adrian for ages. In the end, Adrian, clearly annoyed, went to sleep in the guest room. I used our argument as an excuse to contact Tina. This jerk made me mad again. Let's go to a hot spring hotel for 2 days tomorrow and help me relax. Tina immediately agreed. She's always been like this whenever I fight with Adrian. She gets excited. I used to think Tina was just concerned about me. But now I realize she simply enjoys seeing me in trouble. But this time, I had to reclaim control and also save the innocent Manny's life. After booking the hotel, I quickly bought a matching phone and phone case for my friend. I even found the same wallpaper online from memory. Once everything was ready, I took Tina to the hot spring hotel, getting her to change into the beautiful swimsuit I had prepared for her. Given Tina's personality, she'd undoubtedly take a lot of selfies. While she was busy with her selfies, I eagerly volunteered. With a body like yours and such a beautiful swimsuit, it'd be a shame not to take full-body photos. Come on. Let's go to the hot spring side and take more pictures. You'll use them to catch a rich guy in the future. With that, I forcefully grabbed Tina's phone and dragged her to the side of the hot spring. While she wasn't paying attention, I switched her phone off and hid it in my bathrobe. Then I took out another phone I had prepared earlier. Alright. Strike a pose and look at the camera. I snapped away at Tina, guiding her while intentionally stepping closer to the hot spring. As we reached the edge of the spring, I pretended to be so engrossed in taking photos that I accidentally twisted my ankle. In the split second and I pretended to fall. The phone flew out of my hands, landing straight in the spring. Tina was horrified. She ran over, shouting, "My phone!" I threw off my bathrobe and jumped into the spring before her. I pretended to press the phone deeper into the water, but I was really just acting. Pretending to scoop around. I'm so careless. Where's the phone? Where did it go? Tina screamed at me. Frantic. What's wrong with you? This phone is really important to me. I apologized repeatedly. If it's broken, I'll buy you 3 new phones. And I'll even get you a limited edition handbag. Don't be mad. Tina's face softened. But she kept complaining about all the important photos on her phone. I quickly added, I'll find the best repair expert to fix it. No matter how much it costs. I'll get everything back for you. Tina stopped complaining. though she was still worried. After rummaging around in the spring for a while, I finally raised the phone up. I found it. After soaking in the water for so long, the phone was obviously ruined. Without saying a word, I changed clothes and took Tina out. I bought her a new phone, bag, and clothes to cheer her up. I also took her to a professional repair shop, where the technician confirmed the phone was completely destroyed. Tina finally gave up. Because I used my guilt as an excuse to buy Tina so many things. She had no suspicions. When she saw me swipe my card generously, she teased. I really envy you. Marrying such a capable man like Adrian. Being a rich wife. All you have to do is spend money. I acted surprised. Weren't you always critical of Adrian? Didn't you say he's too busy to spend time with me? That I deserved better? Tina paused. Then found a way out. It's just that you seem happy now. So I'm happy for you. I tested her further. So, do you like men like Adrian? If you do, I can introduce you to someone like him. And if you don't, I can introduce you to a handsome younger guy. As I spoke, I showed Tina the photos of some handsome men I had collected. Just think of them as new friends, you just need to show up. I also promised that I would spare no expense to help her prepare for the meeting. After much persuasion, Tina finally agreed. I handed Tina's phone to a specialist to recover all its data, spending a small fortune to ensure everything was extracted. Next, I went to a nightclub and had the manager select the top male models for me. These guys were in it for the money. I interviewed each one, picking the one with the highest emotional intelligence and acting skills. I transferred several thousands yuan to the chosen model. As long as you can make this woman fall for you and sleep with her, you will not be treated poorly afterward. I showed the model Tina's photos and told him everything I knew about her. Remember how you used to seduce rich women? I want you to use 10 times the passion to seduce her. With everything arranged, I set a time with Tina. When the day arrived, I casually mentioned to Adrian, I'm going to pick some handsome guys for Tina. Do you want to join me for a little matchmaking session? Adrian immediately scowled. You're really starting to act like a gossiping old madam. Are you any different from one of those brothel owners? I snapped back. Adrian, your words are getting nastier. I'm your wife, do you really need to be this harsh? In the past, I just brushed off Adrian's harsh words as him being mean. Now, I realized that he had already grown to despise me. I deliberately picked another fight with Adrian, doing everything I could to make him dislike me more. Eventually, Adrian slammed his hand on the table. Seeing you like this makes me sick. Fine. I'm leaving. Shortly afterward, Adrian stormed out. I immediately called the private investigator I had already arranged. He's gone. You can move now. Chapter 5. I'm going to find out where he's meeting Tina in secret. After making all the arrangements, I'll easily applied a face mask and snacked on fruit in the living room. Lee came over to check on my mood. I reassured her. Don't worry. No matter what you see from now on, you don't need to get involved. I can handle it. I heard Lee silently sigh in her heart. Has the lady been changing recently? Has she noticed something unusual? But my own life is more important. I'll just listen to the lady and not meddle in things that aren't my business. Lee thought, clearly reluctant to take any more risks. I understood that Lee didn't want to get involved again. And I also realized just how blind I had been in my previous life. Not only had I ruined my own life, but I had also caused Lee's death by ignoring her warnings. This time, I wouldn't fail her again. I would make sure Lee never had to suffer because of me. After waiting for a while, the private investigator informed me that Adrian had gone to a highly secure, upscale neighborhood on the outskirts of town. However, the neighborhood didn't allow strangers in. So the investigator had to stay across the street and watch from a distance. I immediately called Tina and told her to get ready to go out after applying her makeup. As expected, Tina canceled on me. Sorry. I have to work late and won't be able to make it tonight. I could tell Adrian had probably stopped her from coming. Men like him always have double standards. Though he could cheat, he'd never allow another woman to do the same to him. I didn't back down. How can you do this? I've already paid for the private room, arranged everything, and made plans. How could you just leave me hanging? Baby. That little stud is really handsome. And he's interested in you. If you don't go, you'll really miss out. Tina's tone shifted to annoyance. Are you ever not a hassle? Do you think everyone's like you? Sleeping with the CIO and getting money to spend? I have my own things to do. I immediately started to cry. Baby, I'm just trying to help. Why are you yelling at me? I just had a fight with Adrian. And now you're arguing with me too? Tina softened a little but still insisted she couldn't come tonight. She told me to go enjoy myself with the handsome guy and relax. She even joked, "Don't worry. I won't let your husband know you're drinking with that stud." Then out a low sigh. She rushed to hang up the phone. As I was talking to Tina, Lee, who had come upstairs to bring me some milk, overheard our conversation. She couldn't help but think, last life. The lady would be crying in her room after being angered by that scumbag, while he happily ran off to sleep with her best friend. This time, the lady's really doing better. She's actively intervening in that scumbag's date with the slut. Lee's words only confirmed what I had suspected. Tina and Adrian were together. It seemed like they had already bottled a nest in that neighborhood. I pretended to back off and tried to negotiate with Tina. Alright. Fine, Manado mo sai. But could you add that stud on WeChat? He's really eager to meet you. Trust me, heading to Velvet session. You won't regret adding him. After that, I sent Tina a series of carefully taken, attractive photos of the guy, each featuring luxury cars and watches I had arranged for him. Then, having fulfilled my session, I sent her the male model's WeChat details. Tina hesitated before accepting the friend request, but I wasn't in a rush. After hanging up the phone, I immediately contacted a real estate agent to find me an available property in that neighborhood. The private investigator also kept watch overnight. The next day, the investigator reported seeing Adrian's car leaving the neighborhood. However, since Adrian had the windows tinted, the investigator couldn't tell if anyone was in the car. It didn't matter. With my wealth, I could handle this. That very day, I went to see the available second-hand houses in the neighborhood with the help of the agent and bought one outright with Adrian's money. Even though the property deed wasn't in my hands yet, the previous owner was eager to help me out. Within 2 days, I had the neighborhood's access cards, which I handed to the private investigator. At the same time, Tina's phone and chat logs had been cracked using advanced technology. It turned out that she and Adrian had started their affair not long after my marriage to him. Reading their disgusting messages and the provocative photos Tina sent to Adrian, my heart went cold. I immediately handed the information over to a lawyer, instructing them to calculate how much Adrian had spent on Tina. Every single penny of that money would be returned to me. With interest, the private investigator finally got access to the neighborhood. He managed to catch Adrian and Tina entering the same apartment, one after the other, on camera. With this solid evidence in hand, I felt even more energized to push Tina and the male model together. I heard you two went on a date yesterday. How was it? I asked, watching as Tina's face flushed with happiness. I could tell she was really taken with the male model. I started to express my jealousy. I'm really envious of you. You get to date such a young, handsome guy. And he's not only good looking, but also rich and generous. Unlike me. I got married so early. And now I have to deal with Adrian, this old man, every day. To feed Tina's vanity and competitiveness, I showered the male model with praise. Sigh. I wish I could touch his abs like you do. I'm so jealous of him sending you flowers every day. He really knows how to be romantic. If it weren't for you two hitting it off, I'd want to have a passionate relationship with him myself. Tina beamed even more, trying to play the role of the moral one. You can't think like that. You're a married woman. Let these little studs stay with us single gals. I seized the opportunity. Had you tried being with him in bed? He's so young and fit. His stamina must be incredible. I'm so envious. I'm stuck alone in this empty room. Tina's ears turned red as she defended herself, saying she wasn't the type of person to act so recklessly. I smirked inwardly. She was already the other woman, yet still pretending to be innocent. I instructed the male model to move fast with Tina, sending flowers and gifts, taking her to fancy restaurants for candlelit dinners. As I watched Adrian return home every day and not go on any business trips, I knew Tina's heart was gradually shifting toward the male model. Before the Cold War ended, I knew I had the perfect opportunity to stoke the flames. I intentionally sought Adrian out at work and showed him the chat logs from the male model. See, hadn't so sold my obsession. I'm not meddling. These two are really perfect for each other. If I hadn't played matchmaker, you wouldn't even know how much Tina loves the little stud. Ignoring Adrian's disapproval, I shoved the chat logs into his face. With the male model's celebrity-like looks and impressive emotional intelligence, he quickly became close to Tina. Look, they talk for so long every day. They're totally lovey-dovey. Tina's going to the resort with the stud tonight. I'm sure he'll make it to home plate tonight. He snatched my phone and threw it down. Don't bother me with all your trivial women stuff. Just looking at you irritates me. I wasn't going to let him off easily. So I pushed back. Try saying that again. Adrian immediately raised his hand, about to hit me. Lee rushed over at that moment. Sir. No. You can't hit a woman. Adrian angrily pushed Lee aside. I'm not going to argue with a shrew like you. With that, he stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I knew he was boiling with anger and would head straight for Tina to vent. I quickly called the private investigator. Get ready. The show is about to begin. Lee, observing from the sidelines, couldn't hide her excitement. Look at the boss lady. I'll never get killed by a scumbag man in my lifetime. This bastard has done so much evil. I'm dying to see him get what's coming to him. I had to fulfill Lee's wish. I stayed on the phone with the investigator. As expected, Adrian was fuming. He drove straight to the resort where Tina was meeting the male model. I had already arranged for the spectators at the exclusive resort. At that moment, they were waiting in the room opposite Tina and the male model. Once Adrian arrived, they'd raised their phones, watching the drama unfold and recording videos. I called Lee over. Sis, do you know how to use Weibo? I'll set you up with an anonymous account, so you can enjoy the show later. Lee was confused, but she went along with it. After I helped her set up, the private investigator sent me a video. I clicked on it. The video showed Adrian kicking down the door and swinging his fists at a naked handsome man. Unfortunately, having fulfilled Lee, he was no match for the male model's muscular physique, and the model kicked Adrian to the ground. Adrian, embarrassed, turned around and pulled Tina, trembling under the blanket, into view. When he saw Tina was naked, he slapped her twice. You dirty bitch. How dare you betray me? It was a scene worth watching. I laughed as I blurred out Tina's naked body and the faces of the three people, then posted anonymously online. Man storms hotel after being cheated on. Video of girlfriend with her male lover goes viral. Such a sensational title immediately sparked heated discussions online. At the end of the video, someone called the police, and Adrian was forced to lead in defeat. The onlookers I had arranged at the resort told me that just before the door closed, the male model comforted Tina in his arms. When the video hit the trending list, I asked Lee to go enjoy the spectacle. It's not every day you see a man catching his girlfriend in the act usually. It's the other way around. Lee clicked on the video and immediately shouted in her head. That's Adrian. That's scumbag. His affair with the slutty Tina is finally exposed. Lee didn't say anything out loud but typed a comment. This man is married. The woman he's cheating with is the mistress he's been keeping. I immediately pushed that comment to the top. Got any gossip? Tell me more. More spectators flooded the comment section. Lee could only reply secretly. This man's name is Adrian. He runs a big tech company. It's for real. After posting, Lee pretended to bring me some fruit and asked, Madam, don't you think the man in the video looks a bit familiar? I smiled slightly. Of course he does. Lee. Just wait for more to unfold. Lee was shocked. She didn't expect me to keep quiet and set up such a dramatic scene. Her respect for me grew immensely. I then shared the video on my real Weibo account. This man looks like my husband of many years. And the woman he's cheating with looks like my best friend, Tina. I also posted a separate message with pictures of our conversation records. My wedding photo with Adrian. And a photo with Tina. Tina told me a few days ago she was coming to this resort with her new boyfriend. How could my husband and my best friend appear in the same video? Someone tell me if I'm seeing things. My Weibo post quickly attracted the attention of many netizens. Countless users flooded my post, analyzing the situation. Some even accusing me of having a delusion. At that moment, Lee replied from her anonymous account. You're not wrong. That's Comeback Man and your best friend are definitely the ones in the video. You've been fooled. The onlookers who had helped record also joined in. I had the unblurred original video. Should I send it to you to confirm? I pretended to be heartbroken and replied, no, I don't believe it. Even if there's a video, it might not be real. Some netizens cursed me. Wake up, little wife. There's no such thing as a coincidence. Do you need evidence of cheating right in your face before you believe it? Get ready for a divorce. Only then did Lee dare to speak frankly with me. Madam, I've known about Adrian and Tina's affair for a long time. But I didn't want to stir up trouble. So I never told you. I comforted Lee. Thank you. You've helped me so much. Don't worry. I won't let them get away with this. But just as the public outrage was building, the cheating video mysteriously disappeared from the internet, and all traces were wiped clean. I suspected Adrian used his power to delete the video and remove it from the trending list. However, Adrian didn't make any public appearances. Instead, Tina showed up at my door. The moment she saw me and remove it from the trending list. However, Adrian didn't make any public appearances. Instead, Tina showed up at my door. The moment she saw me, she hugged me tightly. Please delete your Weibo. That video is obviously an AI-generated prank. And I have a boyfriend now. How could I possibly do something with your husband? I patted Tina and asked, have you already been with that little toy boy? Tina blushed. Of course. We've done everything. And he even proposed to me. She proudly showed me a fake diamond ring on her finger. I feigned innocence. I knew I was just overthinking it. I'll delete my Weibo right now. Then I started asking Tina all about her little toy boy, how good he was, how well he performed. Tina, eager to ease my doubts, gave me a detailed account of her time with the toy boy, even describing their night together. She also fantasized about their future, saying she planned to have a son and a daughter with him. What Tina didn't know was that at that very moment, Lee was hiding in the shadows, recording every word and action. As soon as Tina left, I immediately sent the video to Adrian. Hubby, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have misunderstood you and Tina. I won't spread rumors anymore. Look, Tina's about to get engaged to her toy boy. I know she could never have had an affair with you. Adrian didn't reply, but I knew he must be feeling utterly humiliated. I didn't have to lift a finger. The scumbag would punish the slutty woman himself. I transferred another large sum to the male model. Chapter 9. It's been tough for you lately. Finish these last few scenes well. And then you can go back home and enjoy your life. The male model said, giving it his all. As always. For the money. That night, he coaxed Tina into going home with him. Meanwhile, I changed clothes and got ready to head out. Lee followed me. Madam, can I come with you? If anything happens, I can help. Seeing my hesitation, Lee grabbed my hand. Madam, you've helped me with my daughter's schooling and my mother's surgery fees. You've been so good to me. I must repay you. Otherwise, I won't have peace of mind. I agreed to let Lee come along. After meeting with the private investigator, we headed to Tina's place. As soon as we stepped out of the elevator, we heard Adrian's furious roar. Are you really going to marry him? Tina screamed back, hysterically. I'm done being the other woman. I found true love now, and I don't want to cheat with you anymore. The male model, holding Tina in his arms, said passionately, Baby, I don't care about your past. As long as we're together in the future, that's all that matters. Neighbors, drawn by the noise, came out to watch the scene. Adrian was about to charge at the male model in anger. I motioned for Lee and the private investigator to get ready. At the right moment, I rushed out. Adrian, Tina, you really went behind my back and did this? How could you betray me like this? Chapter 10. You're my husband. You're my best friend. You're the two people I'd trust the most. Tears streaming down my face. I rushed forward, tearing at Adrian, pulling his hair, kicking and hitting him. The onlookers quickly realized what was happening. So this is the real wife. Hit him. That scumbag deserves it. Don't let that mistress get away either. She's the one stealing men and cheating. She deserves to be punished. I released Adrian and then marched toward Tina, slapping her across the face repeatedly. The male model then turned and helped me beat Adrian. When the police arrived, they were at a loss for how to handle this messy family drama. After I'd vented enough, they took all of us to the station. At the station, I sobbed uncontrollably, recounting how both my husband and best friend had betrayed me. The officers showed sympathy for me. Outside, Lee posted the video online, proving Adrian and Tina's affair. Adrian, still at the station, couldn't use his wealth to fix things. The cheating video quickly went viral, topping all the trending lists. Isn't this more dramatic than a TV show? A cheating scumbag actually caught his mistress in the act. What a match made in hell. If she doesn't divorce him, I'll lose all respect. That scumbag must leave with nothing, and the mistress should pay back all the money. At this point, Adrian finally stopped pretending. We can divorce peacefully. Just tell me how much you want. I wiped away my tears, instantly changing my demeanor. That's not for you to decide. I contacted my lawyer, who quickly sent over the pre-drafted divorce agreement. I slammed some of the printed evidence into Adrian's face. With the police present, I wasn't afraid. I have a mountain of evidence about your affair with Tina chat logs, hotel records, everything. Plus the money you spent on her, the house you bought for her. I will get it all back, through legal means. I straightened up, coldly staring at Adrian. So, how much you'll walk away with? I'm the one who decides. Adrian finally caught on. You've been plotting against me all along. You've had this planned out from the start. With that, he swung his fist at me. But the police quickly restrained him, scolding him. Behave yourself. The officers clearly had no respect for Adrian and didn't hesitate to treat him harshly. Adrian struggled, shouting, "Wait until I get out. I'll make sure to destroy you and that bitch. I won't let either of you off the hook." Tina had already given her statement and left. Before leaving the station, she brought the male model to see Adrian. Adrian, let's part on good terms. I've already lost a best friend because of you. I don't want to lose my true love too. She then, in front of Adrian, held the male model's hand and walked out. I laughed out loud. Once a cheater, always a cheater. Adrian, this is the karma for your affair. I'll see you in court. I walked away with Lee. Adrian, meanwhile, was seating in the station, unable to do anything. His affair was now widely known, and his company's image had suffered greatly. Many high-profile business partners, concerned about their own reputations, ended their collaborations with him. Within a short time, the company fell into a financial crisis, and employees began leaving as they sensed trouble. Isolated and desperate, Adrian had no choice but to make a public relations video. He knelt before the camera, crying, begging for my forgiveness. But netizens saw it as nothing more than a joke. You've already lost the kid, and now you've hit the tree too late for regrets. Adrian even came to kneel at my doorstep, vowing to stay there until I forgave him. But after 2 hours, he couldn't take it anymore and ran off. Lee and I enjoyed the villa in peace, awaiting the court date. Just as things had quieted down for a couple of days, Tina showed up at my door. The moment she saw me, she lunged at me. My fiancé has disappeared. You're his friend, right? Can you help me find him? The male model had, of course, run off with my money. Before he left, he ended things abruptly with Tina, deleted all her contacts, and blocked her for good. Tina, like a madwoman, searched everywhere for him and even called the police. With no other options left, she came to me. It must be Adrian who had my fiancé killed out of revenge. Can you help me? Seeing Tina in her frantic, disheveled state, I couldn't help but laugh. You were dumped? Well, That's what you deserve. Tina, eyes red and on the verge of madness, begged. Please help me just this once. Find him for me, and I'll spend the rest of my life serving you. Lee ruthlessly kicked Tina out with a broom. I had the property management blacklist both Tina and Adrian, ensuring they couldn't even enter the neighborhood anymore. Then, let out a low sigh. I used a fake number I had prepared in advance to message Tina. You slut. Running around as a mistress. Do you know your fianc is already my husband? Now my husband's back on track and ready to settle down with me. If I find out you're still contacting him, I'll break your legs. I attached a few AI-generated photos of wedding and intimate pictures to make it look real. Tina, upon receiving the message, went while trying to call the virtual number. I didn't hesitate and immediately deactivated the account. If she loved playing the role of the other woman so much, she could finally experience the consequences. That night, I saw breaking news. A woman, disoriented and wandering the streets, was struck by a speeding car while crossing a red light. Not only did the car fail to stop to help, but it also reversed and ran over her, leaving the scene in a bloody mess. The driver was soon arrested by the police. After seeing the unedited video that was circulating in the local groups, I confirmed it. The car that hit the woman was Adrian's, and the woman who was hit and killed was none other than Tina, who had gone mad after enduring a series of blows. Just as I had predicted, Adrian's career had plunged into the depths, and his social reputation was destroyed. He was about to lose everything, including his wealth. In the face of so many setbacks, desperate, he finally exploded, venting all his resentment by turning the knife on Tina, the one who had betrayed him. It wasn't until I read the police report that I learned the full story. After failing to get my forgiveness, Adrian turned to Tina, demanding the money she owed him for all the years he had spent on her. Tina, secure in the protection of her new lover, arrogantly told him, "Go ahead and sue me. But I bet by the time you're done with your divorce, you won't even have enough money to hire a lawyer." Tina's disdainful words once again provoked Adrian. From that day onward, he began stalking her. The male model, however, left at that crucial moment, delivering a fatal blow to Tina. Unable to cope with the pressure, Tina was already starting to lose her grip on reality. She didn't even notice someone following her. After leaving my place that day, Adrian seized the opportunity and cruelly ran into Tina. Lee and I watched the news together and couldn't help but comment. I used to think these two shared true love, but it turns out it was all just an illusion. The outcome couldn't be more satisfying. I smiled and hugged Lee, thanking her. But I didn't plan to tell Lee that I could actually hear her thoughts. If I did, it would make it impossible for us to continue interacting as we had before. As for this hard-won new life, both of us would cherish it deeply. From then on, Lee was no longer my maid, but my best friend. I truly believed that we would grow old together and happily spend the rest of our lives side by side.